Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special event tonight. We're presenting a world premiere live stream recording, Simpson's Pride by Stephen-Maitland-Lewis. This is about a little-known figure in history who would like to be known as a bigger figure than in probably that history has remembered him, to talk a little bit about his inspiration for the creation of this work and how it all came about. We'd like to bring in now the playwright, Mr. Stephen-Maitland-Lewis. Stephen, welcome once again to our presentation today. Stephen, let me make sure that your mic is on. I'm not hearing you. There you are, and there you go.
Thank you so very much for having me on this program. The abdication of King Edward VIII, because of his relationship with Wallis Simpson, was probably the most monumental event affecting the British monarchy. And as the world seems to be obsessed with all the comings and goings of the British monarchy right up to today, the whole incidence of the abdication has been something which has fascinated me for many, many years. Whole volumes have been written about the Duke of Windsor, Prince of Wales, who became the king, and Mrs. Simpson. But very little is written about Ernest Simpson, the man who actually, in his opinion, and I don't disagree with it, changed the course of history.
May I ask, Stephen, where you came to learn more about his involvement and where you did your research on Ernest Aldrich Simpson?
Well, there are volumes and bookshelves that are full of books about the Duke of Windsor and who became the king, and Wallis Simpson. And if one mined those books, you get a little bit about Ernest Simpson here, a little bit about Ernest Simpson there, and then you tie the pieces together, and you get the story of who he was, his background, a complicated background, and from there, the play was written. I first wrote it as a short story, and then decided it would make a good play. And I was fortunate to have, as a good friend, a mentor, Angelo Palla, who is an amazing man with a long, wonderful history as a playwright and as an academic. And he gave me a tremendous guidance, and I couldn't have done it without his help. And here we have it. And I thank you very much for being the producer, the director, and masterminding this reading. And of course, I thank the cast for their wonderful participation.
We're going to see and hear from them in just a little bit. But again, Stephen, I want to thank you for writing this, for considering the New Orleans theater community to be a recipient of this, for the members of the New Orleans theater community to actually work on this all together. Frankly, it is still probably something that's not finished. It's not finished in stone, and I'm sure there'll be some adds or deletes as you move forward with this. But again, this is the very first time this is actually seeing the light of day, and we want to thank you for allowing us in New Orleans to be the first recipients of your work. So without any further ado, Stephen, if I may thank you again, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to let you get on your way, because I know you want to go see this for yourself. So have a good night. We'll talk perhaps on the other side. And again, thank you so much for being with us. Again, in my guise as producer, director for tonight, I want to thank you all for being here. And without any further ado, please, ladies and gentlemen, let us now avail ourselves for Simpson's Pride. The time is 1958. The setting, a Manhattan plush suite.
One moment, please, Madge.
Not Madge. Sheryl Adams, assistant to the general manager. May I come in?
Oh, yes, do come in.
Are you shutting the door to protect my honor?
It's just, well, good form, isn't it? You know, a strange woman in a man's room. It seems to me that...
I assure you, my honor will weather the storm. And what we have to discuss, I don't imagine you'll want echoing through the hotel corridors.
I see. Please have a seat, Miss Adams. Did you say?
Sheryl Adams.
Yes, of course. Miss Adams, please do sit.
No, thank you. I won't take up much of your time.
A glass of wine, perhaps.
No, this shouldn't take too long.
Surely you won't refuse to join me in a cordial cup of tea?
About that tea kettle. Look, I'll get back to that.
Miss Adams, I'd love to rest these weary old bones, but I couldn't possibly sit with you standing. It just wouldn't be...
kosher?
Chivalrous.
All right, fine. Let's get this done. I need to get back to my office.
This is much better. How can I help you, Miss Adams?
First, about Madge.
What about her?
Well, it's come to our attention that Madge has been doing your laundering on her own. We do have a hotel laundry. The bags are in your closet. You shouldn't encourage Madge to do moonlighting for your washing privately. She's violating rules that are clearly set out in the employee manual, and she's probably been doing this on hotel time.
I'm sorry. It was just so much more convenient than calling for laundry service.
But guests are not permitted to make private arrangements with members of the staff.
Of course not. The practice will cease immediately. I sincerely hope I haven't caused Madge any difficulties.
She's been given a warning, but she's a good employee. She's been here forever. I don't foresee further problems.
I'm pleased to hear it. Well, if there's nothing else.
There's more.
More.
Housekeeping reported that hot plate. Cooking in guest rooms is not permitted.
It's only for tea. It's just so much more convenient than calling for room service or dashing out to that noisy coffee shop across the street, especially in the snow. You Americans are good at a great many things, but fixing a decent cup of tea is not among them.
Nevertheless, it's in clear violation of the rules. This is a copy of our guest rules for the hotel. After you've read it, I would be happy to answer any and all questions.
Thank you, Miss Adams. The last thing I want to be is a troublesome guest. It's been a pleasure.
I haven't gotten to the most important reason for my visit.
And what might that be?
The hotel bill.
Ah.
You are in arrears.
The piece de resistance.
Your account is 6 weeks overdue. Mr. Crenshaw is sympathetic. Actually, he's been more patient than I've ever known him to be. But the auditors are breathing down his neck, and the situation, it's become...
Acute. I understand.
Unfortunately, if you're not able to settle the account, well, I'm sorry to say this, but you'll be required to vacate the suite.
A man without a home. It wouldn't be the first time.
Mr. Simpson? When do you think you'll be able to cover what you owe?
Have you ever felt you were owed something, Miss Adams? Something very important, something you earned, something you suffered for the greater good, momentous in scope, valuable beyond measure, and then were denied what justly should be yours, found yourself forgotten, deprived of your rightful place in
Mr. Simpson?
In a city of millions upon millions. It is surprising how alone and unappreciated one can feel.
Sir, I need to know that you'll settle your account and return to paying your bill as agreed when you took the suite every 2 weeks. Once a fortnight, as I believe you'd say.
Miss Adams, would you do me the honor of joining me for a glass of wine?
What? No, I'm sorry. I've got a ton of paperwork yet to do.
Please, just for a few minutes.
I'm on duty.
I won't tell if you won't.
I suppose that it's late enough in the day that it won't seem all that decadent.
Thank you very kindly, Miss Adams. Chenin Blanc or Pinot Noir?
You choose.
Chenin Blanc, known also as Pinot de Loire from the Loire Valley of France. Your president is known to be partial to French wines, though they say Ike is more an aficionado of Scotch. Santé.
Cheers. Oh, this is good. Thank you.
From the hotel wine cellar. Miss Adams, I want to be upfront. I am feeling the pinch at the moment. In other words, my finances are stretched. I am thousands of miles from home, here in your immense metropolis, on a mission, a project of great consequence to me.
A project of great consequence?
Something that, if completed to my satisfaction, will bring me a good measure of recognition, not to mention money, soon. It's a story that needs telling. And time is of the essence.
Well, I'm glad to hear this, for your sake. Because the hotel can only, for so long, it's the home auditor's office, and you know...
It seems you and I are both between, what's the saying, a rock and a hard place. Miss Adams, have you ever in your life been aware that you're at a crossroads, a turning point, a fork in the road, as if you will, that can lead to grand distinction, or alternatively to disappointment, anonymity, and...
Mr. Simpson, there is only so much I can do to...
Please call me Ernest.
Ernest, I'd like to help you. And all the hotel staff admires you. We'd like to keep more residents with your British panache. But... Oh. My, you cut a striking figure in uniform.
That's my son.
Amazing resemblance. What's his name?
Ernest Henry Simpson.
Well, he has an exotic look to him.
Yes, I suppose you'd see it that way.
Mr. Simpson.
Ernest.
Ernest, I will go downstairs. I will go to bat for you with Mr. Crenshaw. I'll do my utmost to persuade him to give you more time. But I only have so much influence over him, and he only has so much influence with the investors, and there's just only so much I can do.
I understand. And I really do appreciate any help you can give me. I'm sure you must sense that this is comforting for me.
Yeah, of course. Oh, your wife?
One of them. Mary, Ernest Henry's mother. She died 2 years after he was born.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was almost, 20 years ago now.
Mr. Simpson, may I ask you...
Ernest, please.
Ernest, may I ask...
Miss Adams, would you be so kind as to permit me to call you Sheryl?
Yes. Yes, of course.
Capital. Sheryl, you were about to ask a question.
Well, I was wondering if I'm not being too intrusive.
Never.
What line you're in?
Line.
Your business. What do you do?
Well, I suppose you might say I'm retired. After my service with the Coldstream Guards in the Great War, this is the Coldstream Guards regimental tie. Bearing the red, blue, and white of the Union Jack, I'd feel naked without it.
Coldstream Guard. Very nice.
Coldstream Guards, plural. The oldest British Army regiment in continuous service. It was founded in Scotland in 1650 by General George Monk, the first Duke of Albemarle.
The first, yes.
It's one of the regiments charged with protecting the royal family. But I've got several of these, of course. I'm very proud of my service. Very proud.
Of course. You were going to tell me about your work.
Yes. Do get me back on track. So, after the First World War, I joined the family business. Simpson, Spence & Young, booking seagoing cargo, buying, selling ships, all very dull stuff, I'm afraid. The firm nearly went under, pun intended, during the Great Depression. But it's been making its way back ever since. Today, the business is under new leadership, young Turks, so to speak. And, well, I was declared redundant. I still hold a small interest in the company, but it's not...
adequate?
Precisely, Sheryl. Which is one of the reasons I'm here.
Well, Ernest, despite the challenges, I'm glad you chose our hotel. As I said, you bring a certain continental flair.
Thank you, my dear. It might amuse you to know that I was born here in New York City. My father was British and my mother American. After Harvard, I crossed the pond and took on British citizenship. And England has been my home ever since. But listen to me, I'm being an insufferable bore. Old age. I don't recommend it.
I'd hardly call you old.
Well, tell me about yourself, Sheryl. I'd really like to learn more about you.
No can do. Another time, maybe.
Isn't your work essentially guest relations?
Yes, and I really do need to be getting back to my work.
Meaning the satisfaction of your guests.
Yes, essentially, yes.
And you're doing a fine job, but not quite yet to my complete satisfaction.
Mr. Simpson, Ernest. All right, a few more minutes.
Lovely. So, tell me about the life of the enchanting Sheryl Adams.
It's nothing so exotic as yours. I'm a local girl from Allendale. That's in New Jersey.
The Garden State.
I graduated from Seton Hall University with a major in hospitality, of course.
Oh, there. My apologies, Sheryl. I'm expecting an important call. Mr. Ernest Simpson here, and you are. Thank you, Mr. Levy, for ringing me back. It's good to hear from the paper, finally, because I've been writing and phoning your publisher for some time, and you're the first person to favor me with the courtesy of a response. Well, of course I'd like a meeting. What do you think I contacted? What? Preferably with Ginsberg. Since when is a publisher too busy to advance the fortunes of her news? What? A senior editor then, whatever. You remind her that she and I agreed that... What? What does it matter? A cocktail party, if you must know. Never mind. Never mind where. She knows. You just do your job and tell Ginsberg and... Tell her that Mr. Ernest Simpson has the inside story for her, as she and I discussed. Inform her that I've got documentation, correspondence to prove everything. Inform Miss Ginsberg I'll be expecting her at, say, 11 tomorrow morning. No, I have an appointment before that. It's right here, room 705. And Mr. Levine, do tell her... What? Levy. Fine, Mr. Levy. You tell her to bring her checkbook. Thank you. My dear, you've brought me good fortune. That was the phone call I've been waiting for. I've made an appointment for the morning. It's been a long time coming. And Sheryl, my lucky acorn, I'd love for you to be here at the meeting. And I could use someone who knows the lay of the land. To help keep me on track, as it were.
Ernest.
And now that vindication is near at hand, I wonder if I'm actually capable of...
Mr. Simpson, is this...
Ernest, please.
Are you her, Mr. Simpson? Is this a photograph of the woman I think it is?
My second wife.
Does she have anything to do with your project of great consequence?
She is at the center of it all.
Huh. I'll be damned.
Not you, my dear, but I have been. And I assure you it's no small thing.
Ernest, dear, you know I never wore perfume. Not since I was a silly girl, futilely trying to be something I would never be. The belle of Baltimore, fatally beguiling to men.
You failed so miserably at beguiling. You had to settle for the crown prince of the British Empire.
Honestly, Ernest, to this day, I still don't understand what he saw in me.
Perplexing, isn't it?
He, so charming, handsome and debonair, athletic and...
Wealthy.
And wealthy. He might have filled his life with the most beautiful women on the planet, and yet...
Yes, and yet...
To this day, the whole thing mystifies me. Oh, we get on, of course, but still...
My dear, I can tell you unambiguously what drew the prince to you. It was the same hypnotic appeal that lured me to you, like the proverbial moth to a flame.
Namely?
Your captivating gaze. When those mesmerizing blue eyes of yours are turned on someone, on me, all the world seems to evaporate away, and there is only us, immersed in your gaze, absolutely nothing in existence, not fame, not fortune, not all the kingdoms of the earth. Nothing is more important than what is transpiring between the two of us. In your spellbinding eyes, I am, for that moment, the most important person in the world.
Goodness gracious. And shall I tell you what I saw in you?
Not necessarily.
To this small-town Baltimore girl who'd been dragged from one naval airbase to another and another by her former husband, you radiated a worldly, cosmopolitan life. Well-read, knowledgeable about the classics, art, antiques, fond of theater, excellent dancer, impeccably dressed, and amusing in your self-possessed way. To me, you were sophistication personified, and I wanted that for myself.
So, at first sight, I swept you off your feet with my witty repartee.
Honestly, my first impression was of a man who was far too serious.
Still, you weren't put off. One minute, Miss Ginsberg. Bloody hell.
Not Ginsberg. It's me. I thought you'd like to offer your guests some coffee and scones.
Scones, a nice touch.
Well, we're a bit short-staffed today, flu season. So rather than wait forever, voila!
You're a wonder, Sheryl.
Oh, I'm just glad I got here before she did. So, I hope you won't be offended. But after I left here yesterday, I stopped at the library and I did a little, research on you.
I could name scores of subjects far more interesting on which to spend your time.
Well, it turns out your story is, I was going to say peculiar, but...
You may think of it as peculiar. I often do.
What I wanted to say was intriguing.
More tactful. Let's hope our Miss Ginsberg also sees it as intriguing.
There's something I've been thinking about all night.
All night? That sounds promising.
It is a personal question, if you don't mind, Ernest.
I'd say you're allowed.
How did you, and if you don't want to answer, you don't have to.
Shoot!
How did you put up with, why did
I tolerate my wife, very publicly cavorting throughout England and the whole of Europe, with a dashing, decadently idle, and obscenely wealthy Prince of Wales? The world's most eligible bachelor?
Well, yes.
How did I not know? How is it that I did not object? What kind of man turns a blind eye to his wife's scandalous affair? Was I not humiliated? Why didn't I have the goddamn pride to put a stop to it?
But Ernest, I'm very sorry. It's none of my business, really. I was so out of line for me to pry into your affairs, your life. Please, forgive my intruding on...
Nonsense. I invited you into my life, did I not? And what's a little impertinence between friends? So, dear, I'll try to explain.
You don't have to, Ernest, honestly.
But I want to. Maybe even need to. Here's an idea. Let's have you play Miss Ginsberg, and I'll be Ernest Aldrich Simpson. A bit of a stretch for me, I know, but I've always wanted to be somewhat of an actor. All right, Senior Editor Ginsberg, do your worst.
What?
Have at it. Ruffle my feathers. Questions.
Oh, well, now I can't think of anything to ask.
Oh, give it a go, Sheryl, the old Seton Hall try. I have the utmost confidence in you.
Well, all right. Mr. Simpson, the eyes of the world were on England as your American wife, Wallis Simpson, was actually, Ernest, what the heck kind of a name is Wallis?
She was Bessie Wallis Warfield. Wallis was her father's middle name from some Southern Civil War figure or other, and Bessie after her mother's much-loved sister. Wallis detested the name Bessie, a name fit only for cows. So she took on Wallis, a man's name, better suited, I must admit, to her take-charge persona. All right. Yes, of course, it was humiliating initially, but I wasn't the only one, mind you. Thelma Furness, the wife of Lord Marmaduke Furness, one of the richest men in the kingdom, frolicked with David.
Frolicked?
At first, Lord Furness was so thrilled and with the attention his wife was getting from the future king that the prince's favorite nightclub, he threw a party for David.
At first.
The dalliance created a rift that eventually led to their divorce. The point is, David had a penchant for wining and dining married women. I imagine it was his way of enjoying the company of poised and charming ladies who also were safe, women who could have no expectation of anything beyond...
I'm lost. Who's David?
What? Oh, sorry. That's Edward. It's one of half a dozen names he borne by His Highness. His close friends call him David.
His close friends?
Yes.
Including you?
Yes.
How does a close friend steal another close friend's wife?
Think of it as more as a loan that was never returned.
Jesus God.
How the devil can I make an American understand?
Don't patronize me, Ernest.
It was a perennial game of musical chairs. Sheryl, musical beds to be more precise, orchestrated by Edward, the Prince of Wales. We were the aristocracy. We played by our own rules. Rank hath its privileges, and extraordinary rank hath extraordinary privileges. Who would chance to forego the game? Who would hazard exclusion from the charmed circle? Who would risk losing the privilege of basking in the reflected glory of the next king of Great Britain?
Forgive me, but that sounds a lot like rationalizing.
The royals are nothing like your presidents, who come and go every 4 years, a few years. You cannot conceive of what it is to be in the presence of enduring royalty, to rub elbows with a crown prince. Edward, Albert, Christian, George, Andrew, Patrick, David, destined to be King Edward VIII of the United Kingdom and its empire, Prince Edward of York, Duke of Cornwall, Duke of Rothesay, and Prince of Wales, supreme ruler of the dominions, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Egypt, South Africa, Hong Kong, Emperor of India, sovereign over countless far-flung colonies, protectorates, mandates, and territories. 500 million people. 1/4 of the world's population, spread over 1/4 of the Earth's total landmass, all of whom would soon bow down to him and look to him for leadership, guidance, and protection. It boggles the mind, strikes one dumb, robs the very breath. So, Sheryl, Allendale, New Jersey, if the man who would be king, second in stature only to God himself, casts his eye on the vivacious spouse of an otherwise inconspicuous executive of the London branch of shipbrokers Simpson, Spence and Young, well, who was I to interfere?
Your husband?
If I were willing to give my life for king and country, why would I stop at giving anything less? I'd like a cup of that enticingly aromatic coffee.
Of course. Speaking of Simpson, Spence and Young, there's something interesting I found out about its founder, your father. I hesitate to bring it up, but it seems he changed his name to Simpson from...
Excuse me, Sheryl, are you married?
No, I'm,
No, of course, I noticed the bare ring finger. But with you young, upwardly mobile American women, one can never be quite certain.
I'm a widow. Jeffrey lost his life in Korea, killed just days before the armistice agreement.
I'm sorry.
Jeff was about to be furloughed, if that's the right word. He had a drug company sales rep job lined up, and we had a cozy 3-bedroom Tuda picked out, just big enough to start a Anyway, there was a bomb or a mine, an explosion of something. And well, here I am, 5 years later.
Very successfully, it would appear. Yes, do. Yes. Thank you. Well, my guest has arrived. I have a question for you, Sheryl, but you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Shoot.
In the 5 years since, well, has there been anyone special?
I've been out with, seen a few gentlemen.
No doubt. But no Mr. Wright.
No one has especially charmed me. Do you mind if I use the loo to powder my nose?
The loo, beautiful and bilingual.
So have you seen them while you've been there?
About whom are we speaking?
The Duke and Duchess of Windsor. They have a place only a short walk from here, don't you?
No, I have not seen them. Not for years. I no longer swim in those rarefied waters.
Oh, by the way, I spoke to Mr. Crenshaw this morning. Managed to get him to give you more time.
Sheryl, you're a lifesaver. I can't begin to. I simply can't begin to thank. Coming! And who might you be?
Brad Levy. We talked yesterday on the phone, remember? Sorry I'm late. We're very busy in the newsroom this morning. Lots of stuff going right now in Southeast Asia. Things are getting hot in an already hot part of the world.
Excuse me, young man, but we were expecting Miss Ginsberg.
We?
Sheryl Adams, my assistant, and I.
Yeah, well, this whole Vietnam business is all consuming. Karen asked me to cover for her.
Who, may I ask, is Karen?
Karen Ginsberg, my boss.
Oh. And what is your role at the paper?
I'm in the newsroom, rewrite desk for 2 years. Karen, Miss Ginsberg that is, asked me to meet with you to have this initial conversation.
Initial conversation?
Look, Ernest, can we get down to brass tacks?
Mr. Simpson.
Gentlemen, the hotel has provided refreshments for this meeting. Coffee, scones. Why don't the two of you sit? I'll serve. How do you take your coffee, Mr. Levy?
Oh, no thanks. I've already had 4 cups this morning. My stomach is doing Olympic-class somersaults. The Russian judge would give my gut a 10 for style.
Mr. Simpson, may I refill your cup?
No, thank you, Sheryl.
Well, don't mind if I do.
Mr. Simpson, I was told you were married to the wife of the Duke of Windsor guy, the one who quit being king to marry her. That was about 20 years ago.
Almost 22 years ago, December 1936.
Right. He couldn't marry her because she was divorced or something?
Twice divorced, among other reasons.
Right. And Karen said somehow you think this situation makes you some kind of a hero. Personally, I don't see it. And according to you saved England from the Nazis. And what did I write here? Oh, yeah, you want a peerage, whatever that is.
A peerage is a title or position granted by the monarch to acknowledge one who has been of great service to the realm, young man. A peer, that is, a duke, marquess, earl, or viscount, is entitled to sit in the House of Lords and is exempt from certain...
Yeah, look, Simpson, Karen told me about this a couple hours ago, and I didn't get a chance to research any of this stuff.
Stuff? This stuff that you didn't get a chance to research is my life.
Oh, don't get hot about it. I'm just trying to figure out what's what.
How much do you know about English history? World history?
As much as I need to know. History was not my subject. I majored in English and creative writing at NYU.
Creative writing? Does Ginsberg know anything about history?
I have no idea if she does or not.
Good God. How old are you, Mr. Levy?
That's Levy. Brad Levy. I'm 23. I mean, what's it to you?
This, Sheryl, is the sort of ignorance and arrogance that impelled me to give up my American citizenship and remove myself to England.
Ernest, This is the opportunity you wanted to tell your story.
To somebody who understands the trauma the world experienced? To that, Miss Ginsberg, who seemed to recognize the importance of my sacrifice. Not to some newspaper rookie who, until today, had never heard of Ernest and Wallis Simpson. I'd be better off taking my story elsewhere.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Simpson.
Mr. Simpson to you?
Okay, fine. Do you want to talk to me or not? Because if you don't, no problem. I got plenty to do back at my desk, believe me.
Guys, can we maybe slow down, take a breath here?
You go back to your office, young man, and do your homework. Ernest and Wallis Simpson. That's Wallis, by the way. And when you've done that, have Miss Ginsberg ring me up for an appointment. Am I going too fast for you, Mr. Levy?
It's Levy, and you know it.
Levy, Levine, Ginsberg, Shylock's revenge, this godforsaken city.
Well, have a good day, Simpson.
Well, that could have gone better.
I'm sorry you had to see that.
I'm sorry for you that it didn't work out. I mean, that leaves you without, well...
I will think of something.
Shylock's revenge?
Hilaire Belloc, English poet, said that of New York, if I recall correctly. Maybe I'm conflating things.
That's a very odd thing for you, of all people, to say. I have an idea.
Oh?
Do you have plans for tonight?
I'm spending the evening with Charles Dickens.
Goodness. Well, didn't know you swam in those rarefied waters.
I'm reading A Tale of Two Cities, appropriately enough.
Well, do you think you might be able to put Mr. Dickens off? I'd like to take you out to dinner.
That's very generous of you, Sheryl, dear. I know times are changing, but I won't allow myself to be taken to dinner by a woman, beautiful, resourceful, and independent though she may be. I believe in being a gentleman, no matter how inconvenient my circumstances. But rest assured, once I'm back on my feet, I will extend to you an invitation.
Well, Ernest, this resourceful woman is not so easily deterred. How about I prepare dinner for you at my place?
I couldn't allow you to go through the trouble.
7:30, home cooked. I'll give you my address.
Oh, if you insist.
Then it's settled. Here, here's my address.
Oh. You're what, 10 blocks away?
Oh, a lovely walk, especially at dawn when the early morning people are out with their pooches. Takes me back to Allendale. We had a dog growing up. Man's best friend, as they say.
Frederick of Prussia.
Meaning?
The first known use of the phrase in referring to one of his dogs as his best friend.
Seriously?
1789.
What kind of dog?
Greyhound.
You're shitting me, right?
I'm a font of useless information. A pedantic antiquarian, she once called me.
She? Wallis.
A good guess. Leave a scone, if you don't mind.
Not a chance. I don't want you ruining your appetite. What would you say to roast beef?
Please, don't go to so much trouble.
Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. A roast cooks itself.
Are you leaving?
Believe it or not, Ernest, I do have a job and a boss who, unreasonable cad that he is, actually expects me to earn my salary.
So, why are you being so kind to me?
Never been in the presence of a historical figure before?
Oh.
And I find you sophisticated. Besides, I'm invested in you.
What do you mean?
See you tonight.
American women.
Oh, please don't pull the British snobbery act with me, Ernest. I know all too well your secret.
And knowing what that could mean to you, to us, as well as to me, you still chose to cast your lot in with me.
I couldn't go on wandering for the rest of my life.
Ah.
No, Ernest. It was not just that. I was very fond of you. And you were kind to me when life had not been. My father died before I knew him. My mother never recovered from the blow and was overwhelmed, useless. She and I were dependent on meager allowances, begrudgingly provided by my father's family. We were the poor relations every well-to-do family dreads, but nonetheless feels duty-bound to assist. I was disfigured by poverty, and it was all so unjust. When you came into my life, I was not altogether sure that my southern temperament was exactly suited to a man like you. But I was dead tired of having no money and fighting the world all alone. The best and wisest thing I ever did was to marry you. I should have been content to settle down with you to a secure life and a comfortable old age.
But
never having known security until I married you, perhaps I didn't get along well with it. I knew and understood much better the adventure of uncertainty, the thrill of risk-taking, the elation of racing rashly into the unknown. It was an addiction.
And the exhilarating Prince of Wales, David, became your drug of choice. Did you ever stop for 1 minute to think of what your impetuous abandonment did to me? The empty flat, the lonesome meals, the empty side of our bed, no one to talk to.
It was all intended as a lark, Ernest. I was certain some young beauty would come along and pluck the prince away from me. I was prepared for it. I looked forward to it even. Besides, you were just as thrilled as I was to get invitations to David's soirees. Ernest Aldrich Simpson, rubbing elbows with Royal Society, making top-shelf business connections, joining the Freemasons, sponsored by the Prince of Wales himself. Yes, it all came to an excruciating end no one wanted, other than the new king. But I did not drag you into it kicking and screaming. I did not.
Our tangled and mangled lives proved the cautionary adage, be careful what you ask for. You might get it. Oh, damnation. Yes. What? Put it through. Something here. Oh, you, Levy. What? Well, now that's more like it. I thought you chaps would come around. What? That's not very considerate. Yes, well, I have a schedule too. What if I had... Oh, very well, very well. Tell her I'm here, and I await her. Hello, darling. How are you this fine morning? Me too. Me too. Yes. Quite extraordinary. A night to remember. Life is full of surprises, of course, dear. But listen, I just got a call from that fellow Levy. He tells me Ginsberg is on her way. A change of heart, I suppose. Well, we'll see, won't we? I'd love for you to join us if you can tear yourself away from... Oh, good! As soon as you can. Ciao, Bella.
Dear Ernest, it is beyond belief to me, an American, that a whole nation, prim and proper England, should obsessively preoccupy itself with a single family's comings and goings, its doings, and not too exciting ones at that. I found it difficult to fathom the voracious English appetite for gossip about the royal family. Surely this is a phase. But now the compulsive madness includes me, an insignificant divorcee from Baltimore. The attention is inescapable. Reporters and cameras everywhere, like a ravenous besieging army. Have you seen what the newspapers say about me? I am a pretender, a social climber, a cheap adventuress, a Nazi spy.
What's the old saying? I don't care what they say about me as long as they spell my name right.
I don't find it one bit amusing, reading that I'm a nymphomaniac, a lesbian, hermaphrodite. I've learned I am a sexual enchantress who's enslaved the future king with ancient Chinese practices learned while Spence and I were stationed in Shanghai.
There was a time when I thought that myself.
Oh, Ernest, I really can't concentrate on anything. I feel small and licked by it all. I can't think what sort of mess I've gotten myself into. I'm sorry for myself. I'm sorry for the king. I'm sorry for you. I just don't understand stuffy British minds. And, not least, I don't understand myself, the cause of all the misery. Give me courage. I am so lonely.
Good morning.
Simpson, this is my boss, Kathryn Ginsberg.
The senior editor.
We've met.
Yes, it was a delight. As I recall, we had an engaging conversation. Let me take your coats. Please make yourselves comfortable.
Gallant.
Yeah, don't be fooled. He's a nasty old fart.
Let's try to be open-minded and professional.
Sure.
Well, it's a bit early for wine and lunch, but I'm not one to stand on ceremony. So, Chardonnay sans lunch, anyone? Miss Ginsberg, Brad, can I offer you either?
No, thank you, Mr. Simpson. This isn't a social call. Brad and I've got a long day ahead of us.
The world doesn't stop spinning, does it? Every day it does seem things get...
Yeah. Listen, Simpson, after you crawled down my back yesterday about not doing my research, I did check you out and found some very interesting details about you and that company of yours.
Brad, let's back up a moment. Mr. Simpson, why don't you tell us?
Ernest, please, call me Ernest.
Mr. Simpson, please, refresh my memory. What is it you think you've got for us?
As I explained, at that otherwise dull soiree, I feel public perception of my part in the events of 1936 are, at best, underappreciated, and at worst, distorted and frankly, insulting. There is an urgent need to set the record straight.
What are you trying to say? What's your point?
Brad?
What I'm trying to say, young man, is that my place in the history of England, and I would argue the history of the world, needs to be acknowledged.
If you're such a big deal, then why have
You mentioned you have some documentation supporting your assertions.
Yes, in a secure location. Evidence of my pivotal role in the course of events leading up to World War II. An influence that may have saved Western democracy.
Oh, boy.
Now, if your information is as persuasive as you say, what is it you want?
He wants to be in the upper crust. A peer of the realm.
More of your research, Mr. Levy, a refreshing change.
About that peerage notion, I had a quick chat this morning with Mr. Leslie Burbank, the newspaper's publisher.
I'm vaguely familiar with the name.
He's got some family connections or other to England, and
That might prove useful.
he knows of you and is well acquainted with the Duke and Duchess on a social basis. Mr. Burbank is clearly not thrilled with the idea of stirring up the Windsor scandal again after so many years.
Looking out for his friends, the Windsors?
Be that as it may, when I mentioned what you told Brad about a peerage, Leslie's response was, and I quote, not a snowball's chance in bloody hell.
That very well may be premature, especially after he's seen my documentation.
And about that, if we find your documentation persuasive and of interest, what do you expect from the paper?
I propose to write a book, or have it ghostwritten for me. I'm no writer. Tell all about our extraordinary triangle, for lack of a better word, and the impact we had on the course of human events.
What triangle?
Oh, for pity's sake, Wallis, Edward the King of England, and myself.
What do your book plans have to do with us, Mr. Simpson? We're not in the book publishing business.
I ask two things from you in exchange for this exclusive. One, I want you to find someone to assist me in telling my story. In other words, co-write my book.
And
I want your paper to immediately purchase from me the rights to serialize excerpts from my book. Published in installments, my story will be a sensation. Put bluntly, it will sell newspapers. Your country is almost as obsessed with the royals and their hijinks as is my country. I can't imagine why, and I'm sure it will pass, but for now, there is fascination with the royal family that you can, as they say, take to the bank.
Mr. Simpson, you expecting someone?
I hope I'm not interrupting anything. I thought you might like some refreshments.
Delightful, Sheryl.
Mr. Simpson, thank you, but we won't be needing anything because we're not going to be here much longer.
Sheryl, this is Miss Ginsberg, senior editor of the paper, and Brad, you know.
Yeah, yesterday.
Sheryl has been assisting me in my negotiations with various newspapers relating to the financial arrangements concerning my story.
Mr. Simpson, if we're going to contemplate a working relationship of any kind at all, personally, I feel like we need to clear the air.
What do you mean? You may speak frankly, Miss Ginsberg.
Fine. I'm referring to your, let's call it abrupt treatment of Brad, whom I dispatched to you yesterday to make a preliminary investigation of the facts.
Yes, I see.
In particular, the overt anti-Semitic remark regarding New York City.
Miss Ginsberg, Mr. Levy, my sincere apology. I'm under some considerable physical and mental strain and under relentless time constraints. And, well, I allowed the pressure to make me careless.
Careless my ass. You may have changed your name, but I was able to find out what you are. You're a Jew yourself, Mr. Solomon.
That's Solomon's with an S. And I did not change my name. My father did. Get your facts straight, young man.
Either way, that crack about New York makes you a one big fat anti-Semitic Jew.
Brad, I see your coffee needs refilling.
I don't see that any of this is at all relevant to my father, Ernest Lewis Solomons, immigrated here from southwestern England in 1873, changed his name to Simpson, presumably to move more freely in the business world, become a citizen and established the shipping brokerage firm of Simpson and Spence. That's the American dream, is it not? My young friend, eventually, my father married Charlotte Woodward, a Manhattan socialite, I suppose you'd call her. And very late in their marriage, I arrived on the scene. I was reared Episcopalian, though I was never much of a churchgoer. And the first chance I got, I shipped off to a vastly more civilized United Kingdom for good. Now, can we get back to more germane matters?
Well, not so fast. There's more.
What does any of this have to do with the revelations I'm offering you?
Before we do anything with you, we need to establish your bona fides. For all we know, you could be a huckster cashed in on your...
Mr. Simpson, it's simply a matter of credibility. I'm sure a man of learning, of your distinguished background, understands that our newspaper must be confident you are everything you say you are before we can accept as authoritative and reliable any information you provide. Basic journalistic objectivity.
Proceed.
There were allegations that before the war, World War II that is, your company did business with the Nazi regime, doing deals that involved selling to them old ships and stuff that they melted down and used by German companies to make tanks, guns, and planes. In other words, Simpson, you were working against your adopted England.
Hindsight is 20/20, lad. Believe it or not, there was a time before the war when Nazism and the danger it would eventually come to present to the world were not yet known. Many British companies did business with Nazi Germany. For God's sake, even Wallis and Edward, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, hobnobbed with the Nazi elite.
Churchill understood the threat.
So what's being suggested here? That I was a Nazi sympathizer?
Hey, if the shoe fits.
How dare you? The entire Hamburg branch of the Solomons family, my family, was wiped off the face of the earth by the Nazi regime.
Still, that doesn't prove anything. You're obviously mortified at being, well, one of us.
But don't you see, Brad? If I hadn't kept my Jewish background under wraps, Wallis and I would never have been admitted to London society.
Big deal?
We're listening.
The British are notoriously, if often subtly, anti-Semitic. But Wallis and I were able to move freely through British society, even to the point of being introduced to Edward, the Prince of Wales, the future King of England.
So?
Connect the dots, Brad. If my background had been known, Wallis would never have met Edward, a playboy and the most eligible bachelor in the world. Edward would never have become smitten with Wallis. Had he not been captivated by Wallis, he would not have had reason to abdicate the throne. A reigning King Edward VIII, with all his naivety and pro-Nazi leanings, would likely have consummated a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany, as did Russia. In all probability, Hitler would have made state visits to London. The madman was achingly envious of the royal family. Herr Hitler and Eva Braun would have been given access to quarters in St. James's Palace or possibly even Buckingham Palace. And eventually, when spirit moved Hitler, as it did with Russia, the United Kingdom would have been surprised with invasion and very likely, without much difficulty, defeated.
That's a highly speculative chain of events.
Yes, speculative, because I turned a blind eye to the affair between the future King of England and Wallis, and that awful scenario did not transpire.
I don't know.
Miss Ginsberg, can you sit there and truthfully say that you are absolutely certain the nightmarish picture I just painted would never have happened had I packed up my wife and returned to America, leaving Edward to run amok?
I can't. No.
And can you say that my role in countenancing the supposedly secret affair between the future King of England and my wife, and my staging of an adulterous affair to give Wallis grounds for divorce, in short, my willingness to quietly step aside, did not materially impact the course of history?
Point taken.
So if I'm getting this right, you just whistled Dixie while your wife was publicly screwing around with Prince Charming?
Jesus!
I had my hands full, Brad. A demanding international business to run, which involved trips back and forth to America throughout Europe. I escorted Wallis to numerous prominent social functions where she was able to meet with. I'm an historian now, an amateur, of course, but I made very good use of London's libraries, museums, and historic venues. I was an active member of Edward's own Freemasons' Lodge, the admission to which the future king himself sponsored me. He really isn't a bad sort. Once you get to know him.
You pimped out your wife.
What the hell do you know of it? If you were English, maybe you'd have a very different take on it than you did.
Could be. What's your excuse?
Brad, we need to keep this conversation on a professional plane. We're not.
Brad, you accuse me of being
We're not trying.
anti-Semitic. But do you know how anti-Semitism would have soared in England if it had emerged, if someone with Jewish antecedents, was responsible for the King of England's suicide?
What are you talking about now? Nobody committed suicide.
You were damned if you do, damned if you don't, Wallis and I. Edward was insanely infatuated with Wallis and would not be put off. He wouldn't put off his decision to possess and marry her. When Wallis finally mustered the resolve to extricate herself from his clutches, he played the trump card. He threatened to kill himself.
What, really? With all he had going for him?
Can you support this assertion?
It's in the letters. Edward was hopelessly immature, impulsive, irresponsible, stubborn, self-indulgent, entirely the slave to his infatuation. Wallis and I felt we couldn't take the chance. I bet that didn't turn up in your archival research.
Okay, Mr. Simpson. I am officially intrigued. I'm willing to look at what you've got. When can we see the documents?
A small detail first.
What?
The matter of compensation. The fee your paper would pay for the exclusive rights to serialize my story.
Mr. Simpson, there's no way I can even begin to discuss that without knowing what's in your papers. You're a businessman. You can't expect us to buy a pig in a poke.
Charmingly put.
When can you arrange to show us your documents?
Could you manage 1 minute?
Secure location.
I kept these at my bank, but in anticipation of meeting you or whichever newspaper, I brought the papers here. Sheryl, would you be so kind as to clear the table? I don't want to risk any spills from the cups.
Of course.
Are your hands clean?
Are yours?
You are the first other than Wallis and myself to see or even know of this correspondence. You may read the letters here, but here they'll stay. Take your time. I'll answer any questions you have. Are you shocked?
Not really. I mean, he never really did kill himself.
I mean, about me, my father's Jewishness.
Oh, who cares about things like that?
Oh, my dear, the bigots are legion.
I did see that about you in one of our library articles. Anyway, isn't it Jewish tradition that a child is the religion of his mother? Which makes you Protestant.
To think I called this callous and frigid city once my home. I look at it now and nothing seems familiar, comforting, reassuring, inviting. Except, of course, you, my dear. You were the one shining star glowing in a dark and murky sky.
Flatterer. You look worried.
And there are revelations in those letters, private matters, candid observations and assessments about people who were our friends, personal comments about the Duke of Windsor. I wonder if what I'm doing is...
They are your letters to do with what you want, aren't they?
Still, how much of other people's secrets does a person have the right to reveal, to use for personal gain?
Doesn't the world deserve to know how things got to be where they are? You know this. You're a historian.
Amateur historian.
All was well with us for a time, wasn't it, my dear? Before the dream turned nightmare began, before Wallis in Wonderland.
Before Neverland and the new Peter Pan.
Unkind but true. Would I, if I could, turn the clock back to those years when it was only you and I? Our lovely nights at Drury Lane for theatre, the Royal Opera House for opera and ballet, merrily dining out each time. And those dull at-home evenings of bridge after supper, fireside with friends at our flat or theirs.
Were they so dull?
Wonderfully dull. And, of course, the countless weekend motorcar excursions you meticulously planned to Oxford, Stonehenge, Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
The cozy roadside inns and the delightful out-of-the-way eateries. Charming spots only you would find. We'd linger over lunch, talking endlessly about everything and nothing, drinking in the atmosphere and the ale. You never tired of your ruined citadels, crumbling abbeys, and gloomy cathedrals.
But they tired you.
Well, I never tired of the glow in your eyes, like an excited schoolboy, relating to me the tale behind every nook and cranny of every dilapidated castle. In another life, my dear, you'd have made an outstanding Oxford Don.
If this deal works out, how long will you remain here?
What? What did you say?
I said, how long do you plan to stay?
Well, I'll need to get the book started, and there's one last doctor's appointment. But other than that...
Doctor's appointment?
What? Oh, it's nothing at all. Not to worry. It's just a sore throat, love. You've heard me coughing, I think. Nothing to worry about. All's well.
Well, what do you think?
Karen, I gotta admit, this whole Michigas is a little over my head.
Michigas.
Oh, my mother, she used to... Never mind. From these letters, King Edward, Duke of Windsor, whatever, back then looked like one pitiful, love-sick puppy.
Yeah, what about now?
Now, I guess these letters could make him look kind of, well, stupid.
Pathologically naive, more accurately. Do you think there's a story here?
I gotta admit, it's pretty hot stuff. You know, historical, too. Okay, so I admit it. It looks like he got something here. But how do we know these letters are real and not some clever, fakes?
You read the bloody things. What do you think?
We'll see. We'll just,
Ernest, I guess we'd have to agree you have here the makings of a sensational book. And yes, serializing excerpts probably would, I admit, sell a lot of newspapers.
Congratulations, Ernest.
Good. So, how much will you provide me for my exclusive?
Do you have a figure in mind?
Not to beat around the bush. In US dollars, 25,000.
you're not sorry. Are you serious?
Fortune!
That's more than Karen and I make put together.
I don't think I can justify an amount like that.
That would let you put yourself right with the hotel.
And a damn sight more, including that dinner out I promised.
Ernest, if you're serious about that amount.
Dead serious.
Well, then all I can say is I'll take it to Leslie.
You really think Burbank is going to put out that kind of moolah?
His moolah, his decision. Our coach, please.
Would you mind, Sheryl?
I'll make a case for you, Mr. Simpson. But I can't make any promises.
Understood. Thank you.
I'll call you as soon as I hear anything.
Mazel tov.
Oh, my fingers are crossed for you, darling.
Sheryl, I need to tell you something.
No need. Last night was last night, dear.
Yes, but I feel a need to explain something to you.
Not necessary. I'm a big girl. But you do still owe me dinner.
American women. Amazing. Oh, a pimp.
You, my dear, were not spared the slings and arrows of outrageous newspaper reporting. Remember? After you so obviously admired a coat David wore, and he sent you the same exquisite fabric which you used to make a similar coat, what was it the press said about you?
I don't recall.
They said you swapped your wife for an overcoat. Oh, you mustn't leave that out if you ever decide to write a book about this madness.
Maud. Remember, she was 20 years older than I. Maud was like a second mother to me, and when she wed, well, my father was absolutely cuffed with her marriage to.
Cuffed?
Sorry, my father was absolutely ecstatic over my sister's marriage to Peter Kerr Smiley, Northern Irish MP, and son of a
MP? Military police?
member of Parliament. How could anyone in his right mind maintain the fiction our countries have a common language? The point is that my father, Ernest Lewis Simpson, who immigrated from England to America, was happy as Larry over Maud's match with Peter Kerr,
Well, who the hell is Larry?
was pleased as punch over the match with Peter Kerr Smiley, who was the son of Sir Hugh Houston Smiley, 1st Baronet.
Whoa, wait. Baronet, as in one of those peerage things?
Yes, as in one of those peerage things. Baronet is the bottommost hereditary title in. Well, never mind. Never suffice it to say, my father was over the moon. Better. With my sister's propitious marriage to Peter Kerr Smiley, who also held the rank of honorary major in the service of Royal Irish Rifles.
Irish Rifles. Hang on, Ernest. I'm having trouble keeping up with all this royal trivia.
Trivia?
Hey, don't flip your wig. This British pecking order stuff is all Greek to me. Ernest, can we maybe take a break?
Sorry, yes. Time flies when one is having a good time.
Yeah, maybe you, but my hand is cramping and my brain's gonna fall out.
Would anyone notice?
Ha ha ha. Hey, we're making good progress, I think. We've covered a lot in a short time.
You think so? We haven't yet got to the divorce and my consent, which is what freed Wallis to marry David and, in turn, alter the course of history. And that's what's going to sell this book.
Yeah, we're getting there. You want
Has
something?
any of the GT arrived?
Yep. I've done more wine these weeks than I have my entire life.
Those long 23 years.
Oh, it's the mileage, not the years, Daddy-O. You okay, Ernest?
Not to worry. Gin cures everything.
Right. To your health.
A lost cause.
What?
Cheers.
It's good stuff. But I'm more of a Schaefer guy.
Schaefer?
You know, Schaefer is the one beer to have when you're having more than one.
Of course.
Ernest, my age didn't seem to bother you when Karen suggested this arrangement.
It was your NYU degree in creative writing that cinched it.
It's good to know that those 4 years of studious boozing, clubbing, and panting raids weren't wasted.
Frankly, I'm surprised you agreed to the collaboration, considering your hostility toward me that first morning.
My hostility. What was it you called me? Ignorant and conceited?
Arrogant, an ignorant and arrogant rookie, or some such.
You had a friggin' chip on your shoulder.
I did. It wasn't you, Brad. It was all the bloody rejections I'd got from the other periodicals. I was a bomb with the clock ticking.
And you went boom on me.
Why did you say yes?
The solidarity of the chosen people? In truth, I said to myself, well, how often does a bloke get a chance to set down a bit of history? Anyways, I was surprised you went along with her idea, considering...
I saw an ambitious lad with chutzpah. This is the right word, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the right word.
And at one time, I too was young and brash, monumentally brash.
Ernest?
I'm concerned about our timing, Brad.
I think we're good. We've gone through your family in Germany and in England. We've gone through Harvard and your move to London. And if I got this straight, how you single-handedly defeated the Kaiser and won World War I.
And here I am thinking that you don't understand history.
And we covered the party where you met Wallis. By the way, I gave Karen the rough draft of the first 3 chapters.
No, without informing me.
She's got to run it past the lawyers, then Leslie, before we even think about starting installments in the paper.
Leslie.
Leslie Burbank, the publisher.
Oh, yes, right, of course.
It's all SOP, standard operating procedure.
This is a good sign
What is?
that you're both still alive.
Nonsense. Brad and I have become quite the team, haven't we?
Oh, regular Abbott and Costello.
I hope I'm not interfering.
Nah, I think we've ran out of gas for the day. I'm going to head back to the office. I want to do some digging through the morgue to see what the paper ran on the lady and the tramp, a.k.a. Wallis and the Duke, and maybe I'll start going through our photo files.
All right. Same time tomorrow morning.
Yep. Have fun, boys and girls.
Do you think he suspects you and I are...
He's a newsman, remember? It's not like we've gone to great pains to conceal our nights out.
All the same, I I think we might better want to be more discreet.
I assure you, my honor will weather the storm. Your mail's on the table, by the way. The switchboard says you've been getting a ton of calls for interviews. Somehow the notorious Ernest Simpson has been located, and the word's out, the blighter's up to something.
It would be premature to do interviews or whatever. We don't yet have the product to peddle, and I don't want to tempt fate.
You mean the Windsors?
I don't think they'd much want to see my side of the story splashed in the papers. David, in particular, he's quite thin-skinned.
Well, it seems like you're in a good groove with Brad.
He's not the sharpest arrow in the quiver. But I suppose what he lacks in genius, he more than makes up for with his, what's the word? Gung-ho energy. Even so, he has an irksome tendency to bring up the Jewish thing.
He must have his reasons.
When it comes to things like that, one must be ever so careful.
Darling, you do know how that sounds, don't you? Worrying so much about it being discovered you're part Jewish?
Part is the operative word. Sheryl, you don't know the history of the thing. The knee-jerk narrow-mindedness. When the market crashed in 29, the blame for it was set at the feet of Jewish bankers. During the 30s, Sir Oswald Mosley, mind you, led Britain's Jew-hating fascists. His black-shirted thugs openly attacked Jews and leftists in the streets of London. Even the vaunted Agatha Christie and Dorothy Sayers perpetuated the malevolent Jewish stereotype in their books. Anti-Semitism, spoken or not, is ingrained. Sure, try to understand me. I simply never had any association with Jews. It's not like I went out of my way to avoid Jews or ever spoke badly of them. Jews just weren't in my orbit. Jewish jokes, if they were funny, I laughed. If they weren't, I didn't. The fact that my father was Jewish was something that had no role in my childhood. At no time did I see myself as Jewish. My home, if it was anything, was Episcopalian. You're a dyed-in-the-wool American. You should understand the concept of assimilation. America proudly touts itself as the melting pot, for God's sake. So why is it so hard to understand that I am remade as an Englishman? I simply would not allow myself to be defined by accident of birth.
That's exactly what royalty is all about, isn't it?
Sheryl, this Jewish thing, it's the one thing that could gum up my chances at being granted a peerage. This is my one opportunity to finally gain recognition and tribute for my patriotism in forfeiting, for the good of the crown, my dynamic, effervescent, witty, shrewd, certainly not beautiful, but intoxicatingly charismatic wife. But listen to me, waxing nostalgic over spilt milk, as it were, and in the presence of an equally stirring, charming, clever, and above all, blissfully content woman.
You don't have to do that. I know I'm no goddamn Wallis Simpson.
Please, Sheryl dear, and indulge an elderly gent a moment of wistful weakness.
Elderly gent my ass. No elderly gent when you were pounding into submission the springs of my mattress.
You mustn't speak of what we have as if it were a sorted back alley liaison.
Well, what is it then, what we have? When your bestseller is done and you go back to merry old England for your ticker tape parade, what happens to what we have? Is it something I can make plans on, or am I someone you'll be waxing nostalgic about in 10 years? Am I part of your life, or am I just your American fling?
I thought you said you were a big girl.
You fucker. I should have known a man who can trade off his wife to buy a ticket into the Royal Circus wouldn't think twice about casting aside a common piece of ass.
Sheryl, dear one.
Don't dear one me, heartless son of a bitch. Ginsberg. I was just leaving.
Sorry to show up so unannounced, but we may have a problem.
Oh, well, do have a seat.
No time. I just came by to give you a bit of a heads up. Burbank hit the roof. He read Brad's draft of chapters and he went apoplectic.
What's the problem?
The Windsors. I told you, he's chummy with them.
Do you suppose that your Mr. Burbank will show the pages to the Windsors?
Oh, I'm sure he will. And he's got our attorneys shitting in their pants.
And we haven't even gotten to Wallis's letters yet.
I'm sorry about this, Ernest, but I had to brief the boss. I mean, this is no small story.
What happens now?
We sit tight. That's all the news that's fit to print.
Oh, is there anything to be done? This book and the newspaper excerpts of they are of paramount importance to me. They're the foundation of my future, of my ability to provide for others. Will Burbank stop the project?
It's hit close to home for him. He's having dinner with the Windsors tonight, a spur-of-the-moment arrangement, I suspect. We'll just have to hold our breaths.
He doesn't sound journalistically objective to me.
He might just be getting their side of the story.
Everybody knows their side of the story.
Leslie bleeds ink. I can't see him killing a legit news story. Then again...
Karen, it's my legacy at stake.
Seems it worked out well with you and Brad.
The proof is in the tasting. May I have the doorman get you a cab?
Nah, I'll walk back. I can use the exercise.
Dearest Ernest, I just cannot manage the lunacy of this divorce. David follows me around like a cocker spaniel and never lets me out of his sight. But while our divorce is in the courts, he's obliged to stay away from me temporarily so as not to compromise the adultery claim against you. Darling, you've been so courageous in staging that tryst to give me grounds. You've been an angel. I do hope to see your face again.
Wallis, I think something in me quietly died when I closed the door of our flat for the last time. I know that somewhere in your heart there's a small flame burning for me. Guard it carefully for me, my darling, and don't let it go out, if only in sacred memory of the magnificent times we shared. Someday I pray God will fan the flame into a blaze again and bring you back to me.
I did try to break it off, you know. I wrote to David telling him I must go back to you. I told him you and I are so awfully congenial and get on so well together, which is the art of marriage. I told him I could only bring to him, the future King of England, disaster. His family were against us, his church opposed a marriage, and the country saw his liaison with a twice-divorced woman as a disgrace. I assured him he'd be happier without me and to bid him my final farewell. He threatened to slit his throat. I could do nothing other than return to him.
I want you to believe that I do believe you did everything in your power to prevent the final catastrophe. You may rest assured that no one has felt more deeply for you than I have. Would your life have ever been the same if you would have broken it off? I mean, could you possibly have settled down to the old life and forgotten the fairyland through which you passed? My child, I don't think so.
I remember telling you with such assurance that I, at 40, felt I must follow my own instincts and leave you for the prince. The heart has its own reasons, I told myself. Quite prepared, I thought, to pay for my mistake, if that's what it turned out to be. How naive. How foolish. If David carries out his threat to abandon the throne in favor of me, it will not just be me who pays for my mistake. It will be an entire nation.
A week later.
A page turner, isn't it?
It does have a certain drive to it. But I'm sorry to be the one to inform you that you have a penchant for split infinitives. Any word from...
All quiet on the Western
Oh,
Front.
it's been a bloody week, and the silence is maddening.
Hey, don't get your bowels in an uproar.
Picturesque.
Look, Ernest, no news is good news. So fix yourself a stiff drink, and let's just get back to work, okay? My leave of absence is running out.
Leave of absence?
Well, how do you think I've been able to spend so much time away from the newsroom?
I never thought about it.
Yeah, privileged folks never do think about such things. So, where the hell were we? Oh, yeah, your iffy dealings with the Hitler regime.
For God's sake, Brad. We've been through this and your innuendos before. I was simply a businessman, like countless others, engaged in international commerce, under pressure to deliver a strong return on my company's services and assets.
Business in the pursuit of the almighty dollar, or pound, or was it the almighty Deutschmark?
Brad, for the last time, I was never a profiteer, and I was most assuredly not a Nazi sympathizer. Can we please get on with this?
Absolutely, positively.
Looking at the past is like peering through binoculars the wrong way. Things appear small, remote, hard to recognize. It's not possible for us to view past events exactly as they were experienced in their time. If you really want to understand what life was like in a given period, to really grasp it, you must take care not to pass judgment on long ago actions or inaction with the clarity we have now. You will never fully understand history if, like some vengeful Olympian god, you sit perched above all, sneering at the foibles of mere mortals.
Well, that's good. Can I use that in the book?
Did not any of that make sense to... Yes! Sheryl.
Hello, Ernest.
Maybe I should make a beer run?
No, stay. I won't be long. This came for you, Ernest. Your line was busy, so I thought I'd deliver it myself.
Sorry, to avoid interruptions.
Well, it's marked private and confidential. It's from the British Embassy.
The embassy?
I hope it's not, bad news.
I'll bet it's a cease and desist order or something. The Windsor is pulling strings to keep us from publishing the book, probably instigated by Beerbank. Bastard. You gonna open the friggin' thing? Oh.
Ernest, what is it?
Finally.
Finally, what, for shit's sake?
The Prime Minister has recommended to the Queen that I be knighted.
Like what, being made a knight?
That is wonderful, darling. I'm so happy for you.
Well, I'll be knighthood. Well done, old chap.
It's what you've wanted all along. Acknowledgement.
So that'll make you Sir Ernest Simpson?
Yes, Sir Ernest.
Well, damn, I'd say it's toast is in order.
This is so exciting. A night in my hotel.
Ernest, did anything strike you as odd about the timing?
Timing? Why?
When is this thing going to happen?
Oh, I don't know, actually. Allow me to read on.
What is it, dear? Is something wrong?
There are conditions.
What does that mean?
Surprise, surprise.
There are two.
Like what?
First, I must cease publication of the book.
Oh, wow, they don't screw around, do they?
You mean just give it all up after all that work?
Yeah. Well, limey bastards, lots of luck with that.
And the other?
The other. Knighthood would be conferred in secret.
In secret?
A secret knighting? I mean, who's ever heard of such a thing?
I have. It's done on rare occasions to express appreciation to someone for his invaluable service to Queen and country, for having rendered a service that must be kept under wraps, as in honoring someone in the intelligence community.
You mean like a spy?
For having done something of crucial importance, but something that must be kept undisclosed for the good of the country.
What are you going to do?
What about this peerage you were looking for?
Knighthood might have been the best I could have expected. Maybe even more than I could reasonably have hoped for.
Well, then there'll be no Sir Ernest. Wasn't this about getting honor and recognition for the noble sacrifice of your wife to the good of the realm? Whatever.
This amounts to an admission of my crucial role in those tumultuous times, from the persons who matter the most, the PM and Her Majesty.
And our book? What do we do? Just chuck it all?
That's enough, Brad. Just give him some space.
Fine. You know where to find me when you've had your fill of space.
Ernest, I have just learned of the death of Mary, our beloved friend, my successor as your wife, and the mother of your Ernest Henry. God is difficult to understand at times, for you deserve a well-earned happiness. I know you very well, and all your honest and beautiful qualities, and I know the depth of your suffering. I have been the cause of much of it. If I can ever soften the blow that fate has dealt you, the Duke and myself are ready to help you in any way you may ask. It is my fond wish that your son will be a stronghold for the future. Love, Wallis.
A week or more later.
I really am sorry about this.
Not to worry. I've gone as far as I can without him.
I can't keep holding the room.
Of course not.
Crenshaw's pissed we hung on to the suite this long.
Royally pissed. I'll be out of your way in a few minutes.
No rush. It's not like there's someone in the lobby waiting.
Freaking sad how this turned out. After all the time he and I put in on this.
What all of us put into his dream.
Have you heard anything from him?
No. You?
Not a peep. Nothing in the London papers either. Not that there would be, considering. Do you mind if I say something?
What?
Well, I was kind of surprised you didn't go with him.
It wasn't like that with us, Brad. He's got a life and I've got mine. And
Never the twain shall meet.
you are a creative writer.
Not my words, alas. So you didn't have hopes that you and he would.
Truth be told, maybe. But that's how these things go sometimes. Most of the time, actually.
I'm sorry. It's really none of my business.
Asking questions is your business.
Well, I'm sorry anyway.
Not to worry. I'm a big girl.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Yeah, she's here. Yeah. Yeah, sure. That was Karen. She's on her way up.
Really? What's going on?
She didn't say, but she did ask if you were here with me.
Well, I think we've got everything. I'll get it shipped off to him in a day or two.
So, did he say anything to you about if he'd return?
He was barely able to make the ship before it sailed, and I didn't ask.
Me neither.
I guess I was afraid of what he might answer.
There always did seem to be part of him that he held back.
I felt that too.
I don't know what to do about the manuscript. Half a loaf of bread might be better than no loaf when it comes to bread, but I don't think that goes for a book.
All he had on his mind was hurrying home for that knighthood, like his life depended on it. He was so obsessed with getting the recognition he thought he deserved.
Perfect word. Obsessed to the nth degree.
Oh, I hope the knighthood.
Secret knighthood.
Well, I hope it brings him contentment.
Why wouldn't it count? It's open, Karen.
Moving day, I see.
Not knowing if he'll be back, the hotel can't afford to keep the room tidied up.
This, I think, might answer your question about that. It just came over the AP.
AP.
Associated Press. Let me see.
Is it about the knighthood?
Knighthood? No.
God damn it.
What? What is it?
He's gone, Sheryl.
Gone? Who's gone? Ernest? Ernest is...
He collapsed aboard the Queen Mary. When he reached the Southampton, he was immediately hospitalized with... Why on earth didn't I see what was right in front of my face? With throat cancer. A few days later, he was only 61.
Oh, God.
I am so sorry, Sheryl. Brad.
He's survived by... Karen, do you mind if I, speak with Sheryl alone?
No, not at all. Of course. Sheryl, I know you and Ernest were fond of each other. If there's anything I can do, just...
Ernest Aldrich Simpson is survived by a son, Israel Army Lieutenant Aaron Solomons.
Well, that's a name you never mentioned.
Formerly Ernest Henry Simpson.
Right. There was a photo of him right over there in uniform. His son must have taken the old family name and moved to Israel or something.
He was also survived by his fourth wife, Avril Leverson Gower.
He was married?
Wallis Simpson is quoted, "He was one of the most honorable men I've ever known. After an interval, we became friends again, distant friends, but friends. He never spoke publicly about that time in our lives. He never gave interviews about it, nor wrote an undignified book. On behalf of myself and the Duke of Windsor, I'd like to wish his wife and family, blah, 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 blah." Jesus, can you believe that? He dies, and she's worried about appearances.
Married.
The Windsors knew he was writing a book and pulled some strings to get that knighthood to buy him off. There's only one way that secret knighthood makes sense. And it was cruddy of Ernest to lead you on.
Actually, he didn't.
You didn't deserve that.
It all makes perfect sense, Brad. That was part of the game.
What are you talking about? What game?
The aristocracy's game of musical beds.
He said that?
They have their own rule book, the royals and their hangers-on. The price of admission to the swinging inner circle is the game of anything goes. And when you're in, you're entitled. Entitled to indulge your whims and fantasies. And the top dog was David.
You mean Edward?
And if the king-to-be took a liking to your wife, well, looked the other way and thanked him for it.
That's disgusting.
It opened doors for you to extravagant parties and profitable connections, a place at the royals' table. It was an investment in an exhilarating future. I made an investment too, in Ernest Simpson, but it didn't pay off.
Well, count yourself lucky. He didn't deserve a person like you.
That's not what I mean. I literally put money on him. Early on, when I asked the boss to give Ernest more time, Crenshaw wanted to boot the freeloader out on his limey ass. I stopped it. I fronted the rent for Ernest out of my own pocket.
And he paid you back when he signed the book deal.
I never got around to telling Ernest about it.
So you lost out.
I had the consolation of knowing I was the last to embrace him, comfort him, love him, the last to cook him a homemade dinner. And I'll always have the dream of his return and what might have been.
That's a sad attitude for a 20th century woman, if you don't mind me saying.
In my old age, I'll have something to look back at nostalgically.
You gonna turn me in?
Nah, on the house.
It makes you question everything. I mean, did Ernest ever really intend for the book to get published? Or did he swindle the paper of $25,000 and con me into writing just enough of a book to panic the Windsors? I mean, was I part of the game too?
I think he meant for the book to happen. It was his last chance to get the recognition he craved. But he was running out of time and he knew it. So when the knighthood was offered, secret or not, he grabbed it, forcing the Queen to acknowledge his role in those events, even if it was for barely a single breath.
Funny, when the boss, Burbank, went right over to the Duke and Duchess with the photo I took of one of the letters.
You photographed the letters?
Yeah, just one, but connect the dots. Wallis could have denied the letter was real. Then Ernest would have been shot down before we even began the book. He would have had no leverage with the royal family, and the knighthood would never have happened. I'll be damned if I didn't help Wallis, help Edward, help Ernest.
What are you going to do about the book?
What can I do? He took the letters with him. I don't have much more than background information and a photo of one letter. Nowhere near enough interest for a publisher. So,
Wonder where the letters are now.
probably turned over to his wife.
Or not. You never know with people who can pull strings across an ocean.
Ernest, dear, what can I say when I'm standing amid the ruin of everything that was us? Life with David, no longer king but Duke of Windsor, is one colossal bore. I don't go places. We don't see anyone who's anyone. But I think it more dignified to be silent. I wake up in the night sometimes and think I must be lying on our chaise lounge and hear your footsteps coming down the passage of the flat, and there you are, Evening Standard under your arm. I rise to greet you with a peck on the cheek, and we make our plans for the evening. I can't believe such difficult things could have happened to two people who got along so well. It never should have been like it is now. Above all, Ernest, do make your life again with care. You are so good and sweet. Write me sometimes, please. Love to you, Wallis.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes Simpson's Pride, a world premiere reading tonight for you right here. And we hope that you did enjoy it. And now at this point in time, if you would please welcome back the cast of Simpson's Pride. We would like to, first of all, invite back in Ernest Simpson himself, Donald Lewis. Donald Lewis, thank you very much for an excellent job. Pip, pip, good show, as it were.
Oh,
And
cheerio,
again,
cheerio.
thank you so very much. In the role of Sheryl Adams, please welcome back Eris Walsh. Eris, let's make sure we have you as well. And thank you
Hello,
so much
thank
for being with
you.
us. Thank you for everything. You had a rather difficult role. You were the lady who was, as it were, rebuked, even though you gave your love freely. And we will leave you in the room as we welcome back our next cast member. Again, we next bring in Wallis Simpson, the Duchess of Windsor, played so wonderfully by Tracy Eliott. Thank you very much for being with us tonight again,
Thank
Tracy,
you.
and doing a great job again. Also on the boards tonight for us in the role of Brad Levy, we had Drew Stroud. And let me see that we can give acknowledgement to Drew. Drew from UNO, and you are a graduate student, correct?
I am, yep.
So we're looking forward to seeing some more things from you once you graduate. And last but not least, we'd like to bring on our final cast member, and that is Kathryn Talbot. Kathryn, thank you for being with us tonight. You've done a few of these now, and we do appreciate all that you lent to the role of Karen Ginsberg. Again, may I just say an excellent job, and I'm very proud once again that we were able to have you all take part in this very exciting world premiere. I'm going to bring everybody back in to see everybody once again. Let me make sure that we have all the banners out so that we can have everybody's name appear once again. And here we have, again, Stephen is not here with us, but he was the playwright. I acted as the producer-director. Ernest Simpson, Donald, Sheryl Adams, Eris, Karen Ginsberg, Kathryn, Brad Levy played by Drew, and Tracy as Wallis Simpson. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our production tonight of Simpson's Pride. We hope that everybody will have a great night. And if you enjoyed it, this play will be up on our various channels that we have. That includes the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, as well as my own YouTube channel. And later on tonight, I'll be placing this up on my own wall for my own Facebook fans who may not be members of the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, or vacate, maybe perhaps they don't go often to YouTube or any other places on Facebook other than to visit with me. So there you go. Thank you very much. You have a pleasant evening. Again, Simpson's Pride. We hope that you've enjoyed it. Have a very nice evening. And again, we'll see you at the theater.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.